Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, as well as the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Starting off with The Flash, we basically pick up right where last week's episode went off. I mean, obviously, like, if you saw the preview, you kind of already knew that Barry wasn't dead. But, yeah, he's not dead. Apparently, which someone threw this out there as a theory, was like the Speed Force. I mean, sure, a lot of people probably pieced it together, but I had no, like, because I saw the previews and it's like, oh, pocket dimension. I was like, oh, maybe he's stuck in some in-between world. No, it turns out he's stuck in the Speed Force, which someone threw out there would be cool. And I was like, oh, that would be neat. And it turns out that's the thing. And it turns out the Speed Force is a freaking sentient being. It's like, we've been there since like the beginning of the Big Bang. And basically essentially saying that basically when everything comes to an end, we'll still be there. And it's just like, oh my God, he's literally speaking to the things that gave him his power. It's so interesting because it's always been, you kind of just thought like, oh, the Speed Force is just some thing that, it's just like, oh, it's what gives him his power. It gives him his power as speed, that he was just like, it's a science, that it's something like born of science, 100%. That it's just like, oh, a combination of the particle accelerator gave him this power and stuff like that. It's just pure science, and it was just pure luck he got his ability. But it's like, no, this thing's a sentient being, is actually talking to him. Basically, it disguised himself. It took the form of multiple people in his life just so that he would be a lot calmer in this situation and be a lot easier to handle everything. But I was just like, that's so interesting, it being a sentient being. And it basically points out the fact it's like, you didn't become the Flash by accident. You were always meant to be. Like the way it was saying, like, you are the Flash. It's like he was always meant to be the Flash. Because he always wondered, like, why he got those powers, why he was chosen. It's because apparently he was always meant to be the Flash. So, and it's very interesting because they brought up something that I didn't really understand. They were like, okay, because the reason why, essentially, they want Barry to stay there. Basically, he has to complete one thing, catch whatever that thing is. Which I was thinking, like, oh, is it like some kind of like other speedster that we don't really know about? I honestly was thinking it was a time wraith, but it was moving super fast or something like that. But it's like you never really got a good look at it first. I mean, granted, by the end of the episode, you find out what he was meant to catch was himself as the Flash. It's just kind of like it was the part of him that he was constantly running away from. Because the Speed Force brought up the fact is, oh, you've literally rejected your powers. Barry's kind of like, what do you mean I rejected my powers? I've done everything I could to use my powers for good. It's like, and at the same time, I'm like, I didn't get in there. I was like, what does it mean he rejected the powers, rejected the Speed Force? And what it brought up was his mom. Basically, when he went back in time and saved his mom, he made the choice of not interfering, not saving his mom. And basically that entire time, it's a decision that he's never made peace with. That has always, kind of weighed him down. Like, the fact is he cannot do anything to save his mom even if he wanted to. I mean, he had the opportunity to, but he took that opportunity, like, it would cause too many things to happen. And so basically, it was a decision that he made and he can't necessarily live with it. It's something he regrets. It's like, it's not something, anyone could ever, truly just kind of, live with the fact is of not being able to stop their own mom from being murdered. But, it kind of brings up like, even with all the bad stuff in their lives, life in itself hits you with good stuff and bad stuff. But you have to press on, because it's like, those bad experiences are what made him who he is now. I mean, no matter what the bad experiences are, they help shape you into the person you are, and it helped shape him into the hero he is now. It's like, would your mom want you to lament over her death? Because it's like, because of her death, you became the hero you are, all the countless lives you saved. So it's basically saying like, it'd be like saying like, your mom's life matters, but does the lives of all the people you've saved not mean anything? Do they not weigh as much? Because they're people you just saved, and she's your mom. Does her life kind of outweigh theirs, kind of in a sense? It's like, it doesn't work like that. And it was kind of pointing that out to Barry, that like, it's something that he has to live with. The fact is that he can't save his mom, but those experiences made him who he is. And I did like the fact is that the Speed Force, I gotta call it the Time Force, the Speed Force took on the form of his mom, which screwed the creators, writers, and everybody behind the Flash, because they did it again. They put a beautiful moment between him and his mom. Granted, it was a Speed Force, but it was kind of the way it was talking is basically, he was like, is that you talking? Is that you talking, or is that my mom? And it's like, it's both. So it's like, the Speed Force is in the universe, so whatever shape or form of the afterlife exists, it's connected to that somehow too. It's like I said, it's legitimately crazy to think of the Speed Force as a being of its own. And it's just like, it's not just like a byproduct of something. It's just like, it's not just a genetic thing. It's like, I don't know. It's just, to me, I thought it was just something within his system. The Speed Force is just like, oh, it's the particle accelerator created this system in your body that makes you be able to run fast. I just kind of chalked it up to that, but it's like a specific being. But it's kind of at the same time, it's like, if that's the case, why does someone like Hunter have, powers too? Like, how did someone like him get the Speed Force in him? But I guess it's like, the Speed Force doesn't really necessarily choose people. I mean, I guess it does, but it's up to that individual person to decide. It's not like all omnipotent. It doesn't know everything and doesn't know exactly how every person is going to use the power. It's just like, it gives them the power, and it's up to them, human decision on how they'll use the power. I guess that's the kind of situation, because that's like the only way I can explain why someone like Zoom was given his power. Like I said, maybe I interpret it wrong, but I interpret it as like Barry was always meant to be the Flash. So, and in a situation like that, then maybe it's like it is omnipotent. Then, like I said, it just makes you wonder, like, how does someone like Zoom get the speed in? Because if he was always meant to be the Flash, that means, like, it is omnipotent in some shape or form. So, I don't know. I guess it's one of the things you just kind of just take it with a grain of salt and just don't kind of read too much into it. I don't know. I don't know, just something interesting that was crossing my mind. But what I was saying is, the fact is, they brought his mom to get with you, and just that conversation, it's just like, it's literally a repeat of season 1's finale. Because I was like, no, you're not about to make me cry. This beautiful moment between him and his mom, and she's reading that book and what makes it even more beautiful is the fact is he has it memorized, and it's just like, it's so beautiful. I really like that. It's just, he kind of finally at the end of it ended up making peace, and he was able to get back. I did like that, and like I said, catching it ends up being him, and it turns around, and it's 100% Barry now. It's like I said, it's like he was running from himself the entire time, but now he's stopped running, and now he's come together, essentially saying like, with the Speed Force. I mean, now that he's kind of accepted his powers again, that he can run free, so probably a lot faster than he was before, maybe, if that's how that works. And then obviously those good old words, "Run, Barry, run." It's just like, I had to fight back the tears just because of that, spending that time with his mom. And it's just like, those are like the saddest moments of the show with anything that deals with his mom, especially like that season finale. He's just saying bye to his mom. It's just, so beautiful. And at the flip side of this episode, we also had, it was a very weird episode in that regard. It's like, the situation is, we had Tony coming back, who, like, I was looking at the preview, it was like, oh yeah, I remember him. He was like Barry's bully, at the beginning of the episode, and I was like, why does that actor look so familiar? And then it hit me, I was like, freaking Drake from iZombie. I was like, I kept wondering why he looked so familiar, but that's why. Anyway, he came back. What they were doing, the particle accelerator ended up bringing him back to life, like some part of his brain back. And essentially, he was tracking down Iris, so that's why he was going to all those specific places. Which, interestingly enough, is something I had to take note of. This episode was directed by Kevin Smith, and the actor who plays Jay, from the Jay and Silent Bob movies, he's in quite a few Kevin Smith's movies, but he was in this. He's like, he's on a date. He's like, yeah. She's like, is that your car? He's like, yeah. And then the car's getting beat up. He's like, dude, that's my mom's car. It's like, you weenie. But it's just like, I like that. It was just like a little cameo appearance, but it's like, I don't know. Like, dude, tell me in the comments down below. Like, is he in? I don't think he's in everything Kevin Smith does, but he's in quite a bit. I think he's it's not always just as the J character neither. He pops in as just different characters too. But that's what I most know him from. He's been in other stuff, and I'm slightly familiar with some of the stuff he's in. But it's just like anytime I refer to him, it's like the dude who plays Jay from Jay and Silent Bob movies. But nevertheless, moving on. I really liked it. But essentially, I liked. Basically, Iris was like, you know what, use me as bait because that's what he's after. And essentially, I liked that part where basically they were back at the house because that's one of the places he came after Iris when he originally kidnapped her back in season 1. And they're there, and Joe was talking to Walla. He's like, son, you can come to me, if anything, weird happens, any changes in your body. He's like, Dad, I think you're a little too late to be going through the puberty talk. He's like, okay, I didn't want to have, okay, it's kind of make things difficult. So he drops the cup, but the cup just shattered. He's like, are you okay? Essentially, he was testing, Wally to see if, Wally had powers too. And even Guybrush is like, were you trying to see if he had, he's like, I don't know, like, he got hit by that energy, so maybe he has powers like Barry's. He's like, but that's a cup I got you, and he just went up and shattered it. But it's just like, that is something, it's like, was something I was wondering too, is like, Wally was up. He got up pretty quickly after that. It's like, Jesse was kind of in a coma a bit, just like Barry, and it's just like, they didn't know any way to wake her up. Which I like the conversation of like, yeah, we could probably check out the morgue. Ew, you have a morgue? Well, it's not a morgue, it's like a poor man's morgue. It's like, that makes it any better. And I love the fact that Cisco is like, yeah, I'm not going there by myself. And I was just like, come on, you little weenie. And especially when they heard when they saw Tony down there, like, Cisco's like, get behind me. And she's like, no, you get behind me. I just loved it. Because there was a part of my brain that was like, why doesn't Cisco just do it? He is a metahuman, so why doesn't he fight Tony? But then I was like, that's right. Cisco doesn't know how to, like, use his powers offensively. He knows how to use them, like, tracking stuff down and can open breaches now, yeah, but he doesn't know how to, like, use it as a weapon like Reverb could. But when Barry did get back, he ended up touching Jesse, and it kind of sparked, and she kind of woke up. So it's like, Wells kind of explained it as like the Speed Force, because even Barry himself didn't really know what was like that was going to happen. He's like, it's like he's got like a better connection to the Speed Force or whatever. But when he touched Jesse, I guess it reactivated the Speed Force that's now in her system or something. So it kind of jump started it. So it's like the entire time I'm like, okay, when are we going to get Wally and freaking Jesse with powers? Is it going to be like Jesse first and then Wally? Because like I said, Wally doesn't show any symptoms. He seems pretty normal. But in regards of Jesse, like I said, she was in a coma like Barry was. So I feel like out of anyone, she's probably going to get powers first before Wally. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I feel like, honestly, the way things are heading, I don't know if we're actually going to get that this season. If not, if we do, it's probably going to be at the very end of, like, very last moments of the final episode or something of this season. Then they'll get powers, or it probably won't be something that pops up until sometime next season. I don't know what the case may be. But there was an interesting thing that kind of came up earlier in the episode that I kind of took note of. The fact is Jesse was hurt and Joe's coming to Henry to help, and Henry's just sitting there kind of just mourning because, the fact is he at the time he thought Barry was dead. And it's like, Henry, and then he was just kind of like, and got up, and it's like, to me in the back of my mind, it's kind of like, my son just died and you're telling me to look after someone else's child, especially Wells, the man who just got my son killed. You want me to look after his daughter. But it's like, as a doctor, I guess he's just like, I got a patient, in regards. Handle that situation a lot better. Like, I'm surprised he did. Like, I don't know. I expected him to kind of go off on Wells a little more than he did. Like, get a little physical, but he didn't. It's just like he was there, I guess, more so than anything, more than being mad, he was just like sad that his son was gone. Because he brought up the joke, because like Joe's like, I care about Barry too, and like Henry was like, I get it, you do care about Barry, but it's like, you still have Iris and Wally. Barry is all I have. And at the end of the episode, he made the decision. He's like, how I told you I'm going to stay away because you being the Flash, and just, I ain't going to impede on you being a superhero. He's like, you know what? You're not going to get rid of me. I'm sticking by it, which is like, yay! Which, I won't spoil this to anyone. There's something I happen to randomly catch because I'm subscribed to like the Marvel, yes, but also the DC like entertainment YouTube channel. And there was a video, I haven't watched it, that popped up that kind of spoiled something that's going to happen in the finale. So all I'm saying is, I won't say what happened, but it's like that spoiled thing. I'm like, I feel like it's going to be connected to Henry because he's staying in town now. Just because, like I said, I'm not going to go into details. I'm sure, like, even with me being as vague as possible, you're still going to understand what I mean. But it's just like, that's one benefit. Like, I mean, it keeps me up to date on stuff like that. But it's like, if it's something I try to avoid spoilers for, it's like, I want to see it. I want to kind of go into it blind. I choose not to watch those type of videos. But it's interesting to see that, like, they got those, so. But nevertheless, the very end of the episode, we see that freaking Zoom has literally amassed an army of metahumans. I can only assume they're from Earth 2. Not unless he's going around and gathered people from Earth 1. I don't know, because they're all like metahumans we've never come across before. Some with very interesting powers. There's one off to the side. I guarantee, like I said, it sucks not having vast comic book knowledge like other people do, because I'm sure some people are like, oh, there's so and so, oh, that's so awesome, they got so and so in this, because that's a very obscure character that no one knows about. Because they typically do that, because like apparently, like for instance, let's take Damien Dark, main antagonist of Arrow right now, literally a very obscure, not necessarily obscure, but like a very low key character in the comic books. He's not a big, well-known villain in the DC universe. But it's just like, CW got that character and they wanted to do some interesting, well, specifically creators of Arrow and the writers took that character and wanted to do some fun things with it. So I'm sure there are plenty of characters like that we saw. But it's like, next episode, dude, Barry's back, got his powers, and a little, you could definitely tell just the way about his attitude and everything. It seems like Barry is different from who he used to be, who he was before. It's like coming back from the Speed Force seems like it's changed him. And it seems like for the better, and it's just like I can't wait to see this clash next episode. Another him versus Zoom, but it seems like things are going to be a lot different, especially now that Zoom has an army of metahumans on his side. So, and there was the whole him and Iris thing, interestingly enough, because it's like, it was something that that book that Barry adored, because like he was like, I liked, it was the book that his mom always read to him, and Iris kind of points out the fact that she doesn't like the book because it talks about a mom who's basically the perfect fit. And she's like, I never had that in my life, and neither did you, because his mom died. So it's like, we never had that perfect fit. And it kind of got Barry going, like, because of experience, like I said, he is different. So he's talking to her. He's like, honestly, I don't know what we are, like what this relationship is, what it might turn out to be. But I've kind of always focused on what I've lost and not paid attention to what I have in front of me. Having, Joe and being kind of like, a very important part of his life. He's like always looking at what I've lost, not what I have right now. So no telling where I will admit there was a part of my mind that was like halfway spent something. Are you about to kiss right now? Because I wouldn't mind if y'all, like, I know there's kind of that weird area some people have is like they grew up like siblings, and it's just like, truth be told, is before they even became siblings, Barry always had a crush on her, didn't he? Or was it after like he moved in with them that crush really started? But it's kind of like, it's one of those things. It's like, it's not like they're blood related. Yes, they grew up like brother and sister, but at the same time, he's always had a crush on her, so he never looked at her like a sister. He always looked at her as the girl he's always been in love with. So, like I said, it's one of those weird areas people look at. To me, it's like, if they get in a relationship, it won't be that weird to me. I'd accept it. I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's always that situation. To me, it's no different, honestly, from that situation when you have a guy and a girl. Well, anyone, not just not trying to make it just a guy-girl thing, but you take your best friend, for example, you and a best friend have been extremely close, and then you eventually fall in love and become a couple. It's like, to me, in my mind, that's just how that is. Like, it's not, there's nothing weird about that. It's just kind of like, someone might look at it being like, okay, that's a typically normal thing. This kind of a weird situation. It's like, to me, I look at it as the same thing. Is it the same thing? Most likely not, but it's just like, that's how I view it. So that's how I feel about the whole situation, but just felt like bringing it up. Now, moving on to this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which last week I said was going to be like the 2-hour season finale. I was completely wrong. That's next week. But nevertheless, still a very interesting episode. We had Daisy doing her thing, trying to break into the base. Fitz doing his best to fight her at every chance he gets. And we had the return of Yo-Yo, who was looking after Mac. Her and Mac kind of had a moment. Basically, because Mac's kind of like, doesn't know how how you fight an enemy like this, but Yo-Yo is kind of telling him to keep the faith that, things aren't that simple. It's just like, oh, you two are so freaking cute together. And then I saw the cross on her neck. I was like, oh, she did. It is. I knew it was Yo-Yo's cross that we saw from the vision as well as the beginning of the second half of the season, but I was like, did she? Last week I couldn't remember if she'd already given it to Mac or not. It's like, no, she hadn't. Which at the end of the episode we see her give it to Mac, which means nothing, especially when you see the preview to the next episode, which I won't spoil anything. But truth be told, is literally it points to it being Mac. But it's like, honestly, the way they're setting it up, like from what I saw in the preview, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it. I saw like Fitz have it in his hand, so it's like literally anyone could be on that like jet, when it explodes, like someone's gonna die. It's like it could literally be anyone, not just Mac. I mean, truth be told, is now I'm kind of knocking Mac off the list. I don't think it's him anymore, but it could literally be anyone. I hope it's not Daisy, but I feel like they could easily set that up to be Daisy. I don't know. Some people were kind of hoping it was Lincoln just for, because people are weird and don't like Lincoln. It's like, personally, I like Lincoln. You won't always agree with the decisions he make, but it's because I'm me and I'm a hopeless romantic. So I'm like, I have a very fantasized notion of love. So it's like, yeah, you do whatever it takes to get your girl back type of thing. Like, she brings balance to you. It's like you've always felt empty on the inside, just kind of like any inhuman would. And she brings she fills that gap inside of you. Also want to point out the dude James Hellfire, which I did a little research, not too much, a little research into him, like around like this night, because it's like because I'd heard someone else say his like name, like the character he is, so Hellfire, and apparently in this episode we saw him do that thing with the chain, which is like, oh, that was so awesome. The moment he picked it up and swung it back and it started setting on fire, he's swinging. I was just like, dude, that's so cool. Apparently that's a pretty big thing for him in the comic books too. Like, I was under the stupid impression that he's like, I thought that was the case, maybe in some version of a comic book. I doubt it. Maybe it's just my ignorance, but I thought he was like related to Ghost Rider in some shape or form. I could have sworn I heard that, like he has some kind of relations to Ghost Rider, but apparently not. Apparently he's like, because for one, he's like a supervillain. I thought he was like a hero and they just made him a villain for the show. It's like, no, he's a supervillain in the comic books too. But just because of that whole flaming chain thing, that made me cement in my mind more. It's like, he has to have some connection to Ghost Rider, right? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Like I said, once again, one of those instances of like, man, I wish I understood comic books a little bit more. What I need to do is, once we find out a character in like what shows like this, I need to immediately start doing heavy research on them so that it's like I can at least somewhat know what I'm talking about. But interestingly enough, Hive decided to turn Watchdog members into, wait, was that their name? The Watchdogs? Or am I just instantly thinking of the game? That's what they were called, right? I don't really remember. But ended up turning them into Inhumans. I guess like the best people to turn into, I guess to start with, would be the enemy. I guess if you can convert the enemy, you can kind of convert anyone. I guess that's kind of the sense he was going for. I love how that situation turned out because they came out looking a little the way they do. Not necessarily looking like themselves like everyone else did, like Daisy and Hellfire. Just everyone else looks pretty normal when they automatically have that inhuman, the gene inside of them that lets them become Inhumans. It seems like that's only happening because they're obviously regular humans that don't have that gene, so they're being turned into Inhumans, and it turns them into that. But it's like, it seems like they're all the same thing, so it doesn't look like they're getting individual powers like everyone else. Like, all the Inhumans have completely different powers because their powers exist to kind of represent balance. They're there to, nature kind of brings balance with their powers. So it's like, I don't think there are repeat abilities amongst the Inhumans. I could be wrong, but in regard to the way the show has it, it seems like there's not. So I don't even know if they really have any abilities. They didn't really show any when they were getting knocked around and killed. It looked like they were just like henchmen in a sense. Like maybe they do have some powers and they just didn't have time to tap into them. I don't know. But I love what that doctor was saying. He was just like, because he was so sure that Hive was going to kill him. He's like, no, don't kill me. Let me look into this a little bit more, and then, then you can kill me. Well, I'll probably most likely plead for my life again, but still, it's just like, I love that character just because it's like I said. And yes, I did look it up. His name is John Hannah. It's just like, I love that actor. He's so freaking funny. I love his dialogue. And to me, one of the best things about this episode was that Lincoln situation. It's like, because you automatically go, oh my God, here's Lincoln again, going all half-cocked, going after Daisy. It's just like, breaking out and going to the Quinjet to meet her and stuff. And it's just like, oh man, this sucks. And then it's like, oops, nope, that's not how it is. Because the whole thing was a freaking setup because Coulson, May, and Lincoln have been, like, they had to sell it. Mac wasn't supposed to be there, so he got a little hurt. But I thought something was up when he was talking about, I have to do this. I was like, maybe that's, oh, does he plan on doing something to Daisy, like freeing her the moment he gets her or something? Is that what that is? I was like, I knew he had an ulterior motive. I was just like, oh, maybe he just plans on doing something to try to help Daisy when he gets her. So that I was like, maybe that's going to happen. But you find out like, oh, Hive's going to be the one that meets him. It's like, oh, that's not going to work out the way he wants it to. But you find out, nope, it's not him with a Quinjet. Who else? Who is it? Freaking Lash. Oh, that was such a good twist. I was like, oh my God, I did not expect that. And like me, as well as many of other people surmise, Lash, the thought process was that Lash existence was to fight Hive because there needs to be balance. There's always powers amongst the Inhumans that are given to him by nature to kind of bring balance. Like there is a countermeasure to every ability, which means there is a countermeasure even to someone like Daisy's ability, which I don't think we've come across it yet. But it'd be kind of interesting to see that in the future, like the power that exists to counter Daisy's power. But essentially, Lash was kicking ass, dude. Like, even Hive tried to do his thing where he uses the bugs. He was probably going to try and control them, but Lash, like, burned through it. It's just like, oh! Even, like, blasted a hole in his chest, too. And it wasn't healing properly. And then he was, those other, like, I think the word that using where their sway, is that what they were called? Basically, he even grabbed one up, had it lifted in the air, and just snapped its neck with one hand. But basically, he went over there. I was like, oh God, he's about to kill Daisy, isn't it? It's like, no, he doesn't. He reaches up and sucks out what he's using to control her. I was like, oh. I was looking at it first. I'm like, what is that? Did he just take her powers from her? So I was like, no, he's freeing her from Hive's mind control, and he takes her back to the Quinjet, and the freaking Hellfire shows up and throws the chain through his chest. I was like, oh no. And then he dies. So it's like, the thing is, they're saying like his whole purpose wasn't to kill and fight Hive. His main purpose was to save Daisy. Because they brought that up before, like he could have killed Daisy before, back when everyone didn't know who Lash really was. But the reason why he didn't kill her is because she's special. And it's like, I'm guessing the reason why is because she's supposed to be the one to take down Hive. Maybe Hive knew that too. Maybe that's why he's kept Daisy so close, because she's the ultimate weapon to defeating him. She's the only one that has the potential to do it. I mean, it's a good thing Lash showed up when he did, because literally he was about to drain the last of Daisy's blood. But you kind of saw it in Daisy's eyes. It seemed like she wasn't necessarily 100% with this situation, especially when she saw the normal people being turned into Inhumans and what they look like. It's like, is this what kind of like, is that what it's supposed to look like? Like, because everyone was kind of shocked. Like, you expected them to kind of maintain their human-looking form, but Hive's completely fine with them. I guess because it's like, I mean, to a certain degree, you kind of seen what Hive looks like, obviously in the show, you've kind of seen what he looks like, so it's kind of like, which, I mean, I have since seen a picture of what he really looks like in the comic books. Granted, he has a different color scheme than he does in the comic books, but still, I've seen what he kind of looks like. But so maybe, he's kind of like, oh, I'm kind of an ugly son of a gun, but still, he looks at them as like, oh, these are my, in a sense, kind of like it's like, oh, like my precious children. And I like the fact is that he was holding Daisy's hand. It's just like, oh, they're born from us. Like, he's treating it like maybe that's a little bit of ward coming out, because it's like, because he's always been in love with Daisy. It's kind of like them giving birth to a whole bunch of like Inhumans. It's that kind of regard that I came up with. Like, I regarded it as that, because it's like, oh, here's a husband and wife looking at their beautiful children. That's how I kind of saw that scene. And we end up finding out like how he plans on spreading the pathogen. The thing he stole from the ATCU, was basically a live warhead, and he's basically going to use that to spread around the infect a large majority of people and turn them inhuman, and basically they have to stop them. But what I was going to say real quick, because I kind of went far off the subject, is the fact is they're saying like, it wasn't just Lash's. Like, the reason why Lash did what he did, because they were saying, like, and you even see it's kind of sweet, because May's there beside Lash's dead body when Daisy came back, that maybe it wasn't 100% Lash, that maybe there was a part of Andrew still inside of him fighting to, like, going along with, the desire of Lash, but also keeping some of his humanity. Maybe it was Andrew with the access of knowledge of knowing what Lash is meant to do, doing what he did, so... I did on some level think, like, when he died, I was like, oh, is he about to revert back into Andrew for one last time so that, like, May can actually hold her husband one last time? But it's like, no, he stayed as Lash. But she still, it's just kind of like, you seeing her by his side like that. It's just, even though he became what he became, he was still in some shape or form, even though Andrew wasn't necessarily physically there, somewhere inside her husband was still there, ex-husband, but they were in the relation, they were kind of getting back to a good place. So this episode followed something I kind of skated over, the fact that this movie deals heavily, kind of the aftermath of Civil War. So as someone who hasn't seen Civil War, which I'm not complaining about, because there were some things that kind of I can infer based on certain things that was said in an episode, but I'm not blaming them. Like, oh, boo-hoo me. It's like, no, it's just because I'm me. I don't like going to the movie theaters. It's not that I have a problem with seeing Civil War. I want to. It's just I don't like getting out much. So that's no one's fault but my own. But I really liked, the fact is, we see Coulson a little injured, which I can only infer he's like, because even Talbot's like, how did that happen? It's like, I can only assume that's something that happened in Civil War. Maybe he made a guest appearance or something. Maybe not. Maybe that's unrelated. I don't know. But you kind of hear certain things. Like, you see in this episode, a big part of this episode is showing you just how different things are now. Because of the registry, basically, S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of being, quote, in a sense, brought to the light because basically get their Inhumans registered. I liked Talbot kind of getting to meet Yo-Yo. Because essentially, Talbot was under the impression, like I said, like everyone else with the whole Lincoln situation, it was like, everything's completely out of control. And then it's like, Coulson kind of proves to him near the end of the episode that he's kind of got things a lot more under control than he would think. But, it's kind of interesting, finally filling Talbot in about the whole situation. So that's what the real main purpose of this all was. Reason why he was being very upfront. Obviously, because they need to come together to handle this situation. But it's also because he needed to keep Talbot busy while they were working on their plan. I was wondering why it seemed like Daisy was that was like, oh, May was so easily distracted by the lights. I was like, did that really work on her? It's like, no, she was playing along. I was like, okay. So I was thinking, like, she's a well-trained agent. I can't believe something like that would necessarily distract her, but, like I said, playing along. Very interesting episode. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? No, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Next week is, this time for sure, the 2 hours season finale. So I can't wait to see how this all goes down, what's going to happen. The team's together, they got Daisy back, and it's like how they it's now that they found out about the warhead and everything, it's like there's no more time for being defensive. Like kind of May said earlier in this episode, it's time to go on the offense, and it's just like how are they going to take Hive down? Which part of me can only assume it has something to do with Daisy. It's like that can be the only reason why Lash wanted to save Daisy, because Daisy is the countermeasure to Hive in my regards. I honestly would have expected, it would have been nice to see that situation go down as Hive. I mean, Lash was that close to killing killing Hive, but then again, it's like that wasn't his main purpose. His main purpose was to make sure Daisy stayed alive and free her from Hive's control. So, but that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.